She stood by the window, motionless, as the sun dipped below the garden walls of the villa. Rachel Monroe's world had always looked perfect, from the outside. A successful designer. A loyal wife of 15 years. But lately, something had shifted. Perfume that wasn't hers on his suit. Receipts for jewelry she never received. And then, her friend's voice on the phone. "I saw him in Milan, with a woman." Rachel didn't panic. She started watching. Listening. Waiting. Because this wasn't just about betrayal. This was her father's villa. Her name on the deed. And her husband? He thought she'd never find out. He was wrong. And tonight, he was walking straight into the truth. That night, she stood quietly by the window. With her back to the empty entrance where there was no sign of her husband returning. Rachel Monroe stood by the window, unconsciously turning her wedding ring with her fingertips. Even at 42, her amber eyes still held intelligence and elegance, and her simple yet sophisticated fashion sense spoke of her confidence as a successful interior designer. Outside the window, the autumn twilight was dyeing the garden of the luxurious golden. After 15 years of marriage and more than 10 years of career, her life seemed perfect. At least, on the surface. "He says he'll be late again." At a meeting with an important client, Rachel placed her phone on the marble counter and smiled sadly. Lately, her husband Garrett had been sending these kinds of messages. At 45, he was extremely busy as an executive in the finance department of an investment company, more than ever before. At least, that was his explanation. She remembered the luxurious villa she had inherited 3 years ago as part of her father's estate. The villa was her peace of mind. However, recently she hadn't been spending time with Garrett at the villa. At breakfast, the scent of perfume that wafted from Garrett's suit, it wasn't one he used. Coincidence, or her imagination? The slight tension when his phone rang frequently, displaying unknown numbers on the screen. Hushed conversations in the middle of the night. These were just small discrepancies. Rachel was looking for reasons not to trust her intuition. While preparing dinner in the kitchen, she remembered what she had found yesterday. A receipt left in Garrett's jacket pocket, details of luxury jewelry purchased the day before her birthday. However, she hadn't been given anything that day. She heard the front door open, and Garrett came home. Rachel was surprised for a moment at his earlier-than-usual return, but quickly put on her usual smile. "You're early today." "The meeting ended sooner than expected," Garrett said, giving her a light kiss. Fatigue showed in his blue eyes, but she could also detect something restless about him. "Can I get something to drink?" Rachel poured wine and continued preparing dinner. They exchanged their usual conversation, but behind it, she was observing the subtle changes in her husband. The moments when his gaze didn't meet hers, the gesture of unconsciously loosening his tie, the habit of checking his watch repeatedly. "How was your business trip to Milan last week?" Rachel asked. Garrett's hand holding the wine glass paused for a moment. "Normal. Just the usual business," he answered briefly and quickly changed the subject. "How's your showroom design plan going?" "It's going well," Rachel answered without stopping her hand holding the knife. "But Audrey told me something interesting." "Audrey? Your friend?" "Yes, Audrey, the marketing consultant." "You've met her too," Rachel smiled gently. "She said she saw you in Milan last week. With a woman." "What are you talking about?" A slight tension ran through Garrett's voice. He sipped his tea and continued in an unnaturally calm voice. "She must be mistaken. I was in Boston last week. I went to Milan last month though." "I see," Rachel answered concisely and changed the subject. However, something was beginning to change in her heart. For the first time in 15 years of marriage, she didn't take her husband's words at face value. The next morning, after Garrett had left for work, Rachel picked up the luxury hotel room key she had found in his jacket pocket. The date printed on the card, from last week. A hotel in Milan. Not Boston. And then her eyes caught a small piece of paper peeking out from the inside pocket of his jacket. When she opened it, there were the initials BW. And a phone number written on it. Rachel headed to the study and opened her computer. When she accessed the company website to check Garrett's business trip schedule, she noticed an article about his recent project. New project launch in Boston, but looking at the date, it was from 3 weeks ago. Last week's schedule was blank. As the small doubt began to grow, her phone rang. It was from her best friend, Audrey Frost. Rachel, There was hesitation in Audrey's voice. I've been thinking since then, and I still think the person I saw last week in Milan was Garrett. He was, entering a luxury hotel arm in arm with a young woman. Outside the window, it had started to rain, and droplets were running down the glass. Rachel took a quiet deep breath. These small disharmonies were beginning to crack her seemingly perfect life little by little. Looking in the mirror, she saw herself maintaining an appearance of calm, but she herself could feel the doubt and determination beginning to grow in the depths of her eyes. Am I being too suspicious? Rachel said, standing by the window in her best friend Audrey Frost's office, gazing into the distance. From the office, there was a panoramic view of the city's skyscrapers, with busy people appearing small as they went back and forth. At 39, Audrey had distinctive black hair with white stripes tied back, and was watching Rachel with sharp observant brown eyes. As a successful marketing consultant who was self-reliant, she had also experienced divorce several years ago. The wisdom and sharp intuition that came from that experience was what Rachel needed most right now. Trust is important. But blind trust is something else. Audrey stood up from her desk and stood next to her friend. After 15 years of marriage, your intuition isn't just a delusion. But without definite proof. Rachel broke off. Her fingers were unconsciously turning her wedding ring. The hotel key card, the sighting in Milan, the scent of perfume, they could all be coincidences. Then let's prove they're not coincidences, Audrey said decisively, returning to her desk and picking up her smartphone. If you need evidence, I know someone. A former police officer who's now a private detective. Someone absolutely trustworthy. Rachel hesitated for a moment. Hiring a detective meant officially acknowledging her distrust of her husband. But deep in her heart, the decision had already been made. I'd like to request his services. The next afternoon, Rachel was sitting across from 55-year-old private detective Max Redmond in a quiet cafe. With his short, graying hair and sharp gray eyes, he appeared reserved but always observing his surroundings. His appearance conveyed years of experience and expertise. Mrs. Monroe, Max said in a low, calm voice. There's something I want to make clear from the start. My job is to reveal the truth. Whether it's good news or bad. I understand, Rachel replied calmly. I just want to know the truth. Max nodded and took out his notebook. Please tell me as much as you can about your husband. Daily behavior patterns, friends, workplace relationships, recent changes, anything will help. Rachel began to relate the details. The changes in Garrett's work and return times, the increased frequency of business trips, the decrease in conversation, and also the small clues she had found. As she spoke, she felt the strangeness of telling someone else the details of her married life. 15 years of intimate moments were now the subject of an investigation. Does the initial AB W mean anything to you? Max asked. No, Rachel shook her head. It might be someone related to Garrett's work. I'll look into it, Max said while taking notes. The initial investigation will take about a week. During that time, please behave as usual. Avoid anything that might arouse suspicion. On her way home, a whirl of complex emotions filled Rachel's head. Was this action betrayal, or was it self-defense? It started to rain, and she hailed a taxi. 12 Ashley Street, please. Bad weather, isn't it? The driver said. Yes, I hadn't expected it, Rachel answered, looking at the cloudy sky outside the window. And she thought the storms of life, too, were something she hadn't expected. That night, Garrett came home late as planned. He looked tired and headed to the bedroom right after taking a shower. Rachel remained in the living room, trying to concentrate on her design sketches, but her thoughts constantly returned to her husband. While she wasn't confident in her actions, her determination to know the truth remained unshaken. Several days later, Rachel decided to try opening Garrett's laptop. An hour after he left for work, she turned on the computer in the study. When the password screen appeared, she entered their wedding anniversary date, which had always been his password before. Incorrect password. She tried his birthday, her birthday, and the date they met, one after another. All failed. The password had been changed. What are you doing? A voice suddenly came from behind. Rachel turned around in surprise. Garrett was standing at the study door. His expression showed aggression and caution she had never seen before. You're home early, Rachel said, hiding her agitation. I thought I'd check your schedule and prepare dinner. You could have asked me on the phone. Garrett's voice was cold. He closed the laptop and lifted it from the desk. Why are you touching my things without permission? It's not without permission, Rachel tried to maintain her composure. I've checked it before, haven't I? Are you hiding something? This is an invasion of privacy, he raised his voice. Even married couples have boundaries. It was their first serious argument in their married life. Both of them felt the room filled with tension they had never experienced before. What are you hiding? Rachel asked directly. Who did you go to Milan with? That again, Garrett made no attempt to hide his irritation. I'm tired of this conversation. I didn't go to Milan. Your friend is mistaken. He held the laptop firmly under his arm before leaving the room. That night, they spent time in separate rooms. The next morning, Garrett left early, leaving only a cold atmosphere behind. That afternoon, Rachel decided to meet with divorce attorney Felicity Parker. With her neat bob haircut and intellectual-looking framed glasses, she was someone Rachel had met through her connection as a friend of Rachel's father. I just want legal advice, Rachel explained. I haven't made a decision yet, but I want to be prepared. A wise decision, Felicity responded calmly. Understanding the situation is important, whatever decision you make. She asked detailed questions about Rachel and Garrett's property situation, villa ownership, and their financial assets. In particular, she noted that the villa was actually inherited from Rachel's father. If there is evidence, you are in a very advantageous position, Felicity explained. Especially in cases involving criminal activities like embezzlement. Embezzlement? Rachel asked in surprise. Just an example, Felicity said gently. But let's wait for the detective's investigation results. We'll consider the next steps from there. As the weekend approached, Garrett announced that he would be away from home for 2 weeks on an urgent business trip. There's trouble with the Milan project, and I need to deal with it directly. Rachel nodded without saying anything. In her heart, more questions were forming. But on the surface, she pretended to know nothing. Take care, she said. Keep in touch. The day after Garrett left, Rachel gathered her courage and called her husband's company. A young woman at the reception answered the phone. I'd like to inquire about Garrett Monroe's project in Milan, Rachel asked calmly. Mr. Monroe? Milan project? The receptionist seemed confused. No, our company doesn't have any ongoing projects in Milan. I understand Mr. Monroe is on vacation. At those words, Rachel felt her heart tighten. She thanked the receptionist and hung up. After returning home, she began to thoroughly examine Garrett's documents. From the drawer in the study he didn't use, she discovered bank books, bills, memos, and statements from unknown credit cards. Expensive meals, jewelry stores, luxury hotels, all expenditures she knew nothing about. And what concerned her most was the record of recent large withdrawals. Withdrawals from the company account. Late that night, the first report arrived from Max. Rachel opened the email with trembling hands. I am writing to inform you of the initial investigation results, the email began. Your husband, Garrett Monroe, is frequently meeting with a 27-year-old woman, Brianna West. She works as an art gallery manager and appears to have been in a relationship with Mr. Garrett for about 6 months. The attached photos showed Garrett and Brianna coming out of a luxury restaurant. She had long blonde hair and bright green eyes, and showed a refined fashion sense. They were holding hands and appeared intimate. Rachel stared at the photos, various emotions swirling within her. Why, how, questions filled her head. Anger and sadness, and a strange sense of liberation. At least, she wasn't crazy anymore. Her doubts were real. But this was only part of the truth. According to Max's continued report, Garrett and Brianna were planning to go on a trip somewhere this weekend. The destination was still unknown. Rachel went out to the balcony, with a glass of wine in hand. Under the starry sky, she thought about her future life. Her heart was full of pain, but at the same time, she felt a strange clarity from having her long-felt anxiety take form. I'll have the courage to face the truth, she whispered quietly toward the night sky. The stars twinkled coldly and indifferently, but in Rachel's heart, the fire of a new determination was quietly but surely beginning to burn. Are you ready to see this? Max Redmond asked quietly. His voice carried the weight of experience. The expression in the former police officer's eyes told of the seriousness of the evidence he was about to show. Rachel's study was bathed in the soft light of the afternoon, but the air was filled with tension. Rachel took a deep breath and nodded. Show me. Max held out a USB memory stick. In his hand movements was the quiet confidence of someone who had witnessed hundreds of life-changing moments. Rachel reached out to take it and inserted it into her laptop. She herself realized that her fingertips were trembling slightly. The screen displayed the entrance of a luxury hotel. The date and time were shown in the corner of the frame, exactly when Garrett had said he was in Boston. A few minutes later, Garrett's figure entered the frame. Next to him was a young woman with long blonde hair, Brianna West. The two had their arms linked intimately and entered the hotel laughing. This footage is from last week, Max explained quietly. They stayed at that hotel for 5 hours. Rachel tried to maintain an expressionless face, but she felt something crumbling inside her chest. The screen changed, now showing the two of them at a restaurant. Next, there is a recording of their conversation, Max said. Since it was in a public place, there are no legal issues. When he pressed the button, Garrett's voice echoed throughout the room. In the image, Garrett was taking Brianna's hand. That villa is actually mine. I inherited it from my father. I want to take you there next weekend. At Garrett's voice, a dull pain shot through Rachel's chest. The villa is actually mine, that was a complete lie. The luxurious villa was inherited from her father, who had passed away 3 years ago. Garrett's name wasn't on it at all. What was even more cruel was that the memory of her father was being used as a tool for Garrett's lies. There's more, Max said quietly. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. Financial records. The next screen displayed details of multiple bank transactions. Large amounts had been transferred from Garrett's company account to several unidentifiable accounts. This shows signs of embezzlement, Max explained calmly. Your husband is diverting company funds for personal use. Expensive gifts, trips, and luxuries for her, Rachel continued. Her voice was surprisingly calm. It contrasted with the fierce storm of emotions within her. Max nodded. Further investigation revealed records of a luxury apartment recently purchased by your husband. Not in his name, but in Brianna West's name. Rachel quietly stood up and walked to the window. She could see the trees in the garden swaying in the wind. Her heart was shaking violently in the same way, but on the surface, she maintained her calm. One last thing, Max said. From the conversation between your husband and Brianna, it appears they are planning to go to the villa this weekend. He told you he was on a business trip, but in reality, he's taking her to my villa, Rachel said, still staring out the window. That's correct. Silence enveloped them. The chirping of birds could be heard from outside. Life goes on, Rachel thought. Even as her world falls apart, everyday life continues. What do you want to do? Max asked quietly. Rachel took a deep breath and turned around. I wanted to know the truth. And now, I know it. There was a look of determination in her eyes. I need to think about the next step. That night, she contacted her lawyer, Felicity. She immediately grasped Rachel's situation. The evidence is clear, Felicity said after reviewing the materials provided by Max. You are in an advantageous position. The villa is inherited from your father, in your name only. His wasteful behavior and lies will also work in your favor in divorce mediation. What about the embezzlement? Rachel asked. That goes beyond civil matters, Felicity said carefully. Reporting it to the company is up to you. You could also press criminal charges against him. I could send him to prison, Rachel's voice trembled slightly. It's possible, Felicity answered calmly. But the final decision is yours. Please consider carefully. As she left the office, Rachel looked up at the city lights. 15 years of marriage. Shared memories, laughter, and now betrayal. Everything was swirling in her heart. She took out her phone and, for some reason, stared at Garrett's photo. Someone she once loved, now a stranger. Late that night, a message arrived from Garrett. Everything's going well. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Love you. Looking at the screen, Rachel felt how empty his words sounded. It was just an extension of the lies he had been telling. At the same time, a report from Max also arrived. Garrett and Brianna are planning to head to the villa this weekend. They are expected to arrive Friday afternoon. Rachel stood by the window, looking at the night view, and made her decision. A calmness beyond sadness and anger enveloped her. The villa inherited from her father. A symbol of her life. She would not allow it to become a stage for Garrett's lies and betrayal. Enough, she whispered quietly. In that moment, something changed within Rachel. From a woman dominated by fear and sadness to a woman determined to take control of her own destiny. She picked up her smartphone and called Audrey. I have a plan, she said. Will you help me? Audrey's response was immediate. Tell me anything. I'll do anything for you. After hanging up, Rachel sat at the desk in her study and took out paper and pen. She began to write her plan. A perfect plan, thought out to the last detail. She was determined to act for purification, justice, and above all, her own liberation. In the middle of the night, Rachel slowly walked through each room of the villa. A space filled with memories. But now, those memories were tainted by lies. She stopped by the bedroom and picked up her wedding photo with Garrett. Once the image of a happy couple. Now, just a monument to falsehood. She returned the photo to the dresser and opened the window. The night breeze entered the room, and the curtains swayed quietly. Fresh air, a new beginning. In that moment, Rachel was determined to reclaim her life. Living in lies is over. Now it's my turn, she whispered toward the starry sky. Quietly but surely, a plan for revenge and rebirth began to take shape in her heart. It will go perfectly. Rachel stood in the center of her best friend Audrey Frost's spacious living room and spoke with a confident voice. Audrey's home reflected her own strength and sophistication with its warm modern design. Through the window spread a vibrant view of the city, with the afternoon sunlight dyeing the room golden. On the faces of the gathered companions were determination and solidarity. Her lawyer, Felicity, directed a sharp gaze from behind her intellectual glasses, while Detective Max stood quietly in the corner of the room. His presence was quiet yet reassuring. Also present as an unexpected ally was Veronica Hudson, the wife of an executive at Garrett's company. At 58, she concealed a steely strength within her elegant demeanor. The evidence of embezzlement has been delivered to the board, Veronica said, touching her pearl necklace. They are furious. There is clear evidence, and a considerable amount has been diverted. Arrest warrants are ready, but we can adjust the timing to match your plan. Rachel nodded. I appreciate that. But I want to settle this a bit more personally. She walked to the window and gazed at the outside world. On the antique table was spread a detailed plan. It outlined a perfectly coordinated blueprint for revenge beginning Friday evening. The villa's security system has already been enhanced, Audrey said. She held the latest tablet in her hand and swiped the screen. Surveillance cameras have been installed in all rooms. The entrance, living room, kitchen, courtyard, everything can be monitored remotely. Will voice be recorded too? Rachel turned and asked. Of course, Audrey answered confidently. High-definition video and clear audio. All can be used as evidence. Felicity looked up from her stack of documents. The divorce papers are ready. Her voice was calm but had a professional resonance. Regarding the division of assets, there will be nothing to your disadvantage. Since the villa is in your name, there's no problem. Also, considering his embezzlement, we can extract even more favorable terms. The goal isn't simply revenge, Rachel said quietly. A light of determination dwelled in her amber eyes. I just want to reclaim my life. What he tried to take from me. Max quietly cleared his throat. Garrett's financial assets will be frozen when the authorities begin their investigation tomorrow morning. He won't know it, but soon all his escape routes will be blocked. What about Brianna? Audrey asked. Is she a victim too? Or an accomplice? Rachel thoughtfully bit her lip. This was a question she had asked herself many times. From the evidence, it seemed Brianna believed Garrett's lies, that he was single and wealthy. I think she has the right to know the truth too, Rachel finally answered. What she chooses is up to her. The next step of the plan was to secure Brianna's cooperation. Max's investigation had revealed the contact information of Brianna's best friend, Joy Lynn. A 26-year-old freelance illustrator, she had met Brianna at art school and became close friends. Have you contacted Joy Lynn? Rachel asked Max. Yes, Max nodded. She is scheduled to come here this afternoon. It seems she herself had questions about Brianna and Garrett's relationship. Several hours later, Joy, with her distinctive purple short hair and artistic fashion sense, arrived at Audrey's house. Her bright and expressive face showed a mixture of worry and determination. Brianna believes he is single, Joy told Rachel straight. Her voice was infused with love and concern for her friend. Garrett has told her he is a successful investor with no previous marriages. In fact, he even bought her a luxury apartment. With funds embezzled from the company, Veronica quietly added. She doesn't even know he's married, Joy continued. Sadness for her friend floated in her eyes. He has deceived both of us, Rachel said quietly. An unexpected empathy was born in her emotions. Brianna will be hurt, Joy said frankly. But she has the right to know the truth too. And I want to help tell her that. The plan progressed smoothly. Joy promised to meet with Brianna before she visited the villa with Garrett on Friday evening. She decided not to tell the truth directly, but only to suggest that everything would be revealed that night. She will be angry, Joy warned. But ultimately, I think she'll choose the truth. For the rest of the week, Rachel and the team proceeded with careful preparations. An elegant dinner party would be set up at the villa, with everything from table settings to food choices perfectly planned. Those invited were Rachel's allies, Audrey, Felicity, Max, Joy, and 2 executives from Garrett's company. Witnesses are necessary, Felicity explained from a legal perspective. Not just your word, but the presence of multiple witnesses is important. Friday morning, Rachel woke up early and began the final preparations at the villa. Fresh flowers were arranged at the entrance and in the living room, premium champagne was chilled, and special music she had chosen was set in the system. She checked herself in the mirror. Wearing an elegant dress, her expression was calm but filled with determination. This isn't the end, she told herself. It's a new beginning. Team members began to gather at 4 p.m. Audrey finished checking the latest security system and reported that everything was working normally. Felicity made final confirmations of the divorce papers, and Max quietly watched the situation from the corner of the room. A text message arrived from Joy. Heading to the villa with Garrett. She seems to feel something is wrong. Rachel took a deep breath and said to everyone, please take your positions. They will arrive shortly. The guests were elegantly positioned in the living room, appearing to engage in pleasant conversation with champagne glasses in hand, but tension and anticipation hung in the air. Then, the sound of keys turning in the front door was heard. Rachel quietly stood up and began walking toward the entrance. Her heartbeat quickened, but her expression maintained its calmness. The moment when the truth of 15 years of marriage would be revealed was about to begin. Welcome to our villa, she whispered quietly. The moment Garrett and Brianna entered the luxurious villa's living room holding hands, it seemed as if time had stopped. Their smiles gradually froze, and confusion and surprise appeared in their eyes. It was clear that the sight of elegantly dressed Rachel greeting them with a champagne glass in hand, together with her invited guests, was unexpected to them. The living room was wrapped in the soft light of dusk, and through the large windows, a beautiful garden could be seen. The light from the luxurious chandelier reflected off the crystal glasses, creating an elegant space. A large screen was installed on the wall, and several photos were arranged around it. Photos of Rachel and her father, and photos of the villa when it was first built. Welcome home, Garrett. Rachel's voice was icy cold, yet concealed a quiet strength. Her amber eyes reflected all the emotions cultivated during the past 15 years of marriage, love, disappointment, and now determination. Garrett smoothed his black hair that was beginning to mix with gray, and clear distress was visible in his sharp blue eyes. Dressed in an expensive suit, he suddenly seemed to realize he was trapped in the castle of lies he himself had built. Rachel, this is... Garrett choked on his words. Next to him, Brianna stood frozen with tension. Her long blonde hair and bright green eyes reflected the light in the room, and her dress incorporating the latest trends accentuated her youth and beauty. Her expression showed confusion and questions. An explanation? Rachel elegantly continued. She stepped forward and raised her champagne glass high. Let's make a toast. To the truth. The air in the room froze. The invited guests, Audrey, Felicity, Max, Joy, and 2 executives from Garrett's company, quietly raised their glasses. Brianna's best friend Joy sent her friend a sad but determined look. "Welcome to our villa," Rachel continued. There was a special emphasis on the word "our" in her voice. "You should explain a lot about this villa to Brianna, Garrett." Brianna looked at Garrett with a confused expression. "What is she talking about?" Her voice trembled. "This villa is my father's legacy," Rachel explained calmly. She pointed to the photo of her with her father hanging on the wall. "I inherited it 3 years ago. Garrett has no rights to it whatsoever." "That can't be," Brianna started to say, but cut off her words seeing the expression that appeared on Garrett's face. "And he has more to explain," Rachel continued. She picked up the remote control and turned on the screen on the wall. "Everything he told you is a lie. He is neither single nor the owner of this villa. And worst of all, he has been embezzling company funds." The screen displayed evidence collected by Max one after another. Garrett and Rachel's marriage certificate, the villa's ownership deed, and bank transaction records showing the diversion of company funds. Garrett's face was drained of color. He tried to say something, but no voice came out. Meanwhile, Brianna began to tremble with anger and humiliation. "You said you were single," she said in a low voice toward Garrett. "That you loved me. You talked about our future." "Bree, listen," Garrett said desperately. "This is all a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding," one of the company executives, a man in his 60s, stood up and said. His stern expression was uncompromising. "Mr. Monroe, you have embezzled over $2 million from the company over the past 6 months. This is not just a misunderstanding, it's a crime." Another executive pulled out a stack of documents. "The board of directors held an emergency meeting and requested a warrant for your arrest. The police are currently looking for you." Brianna stepped back and moved closer to Joy. "Did you know?" she asked her friend. Joy nodded sadly. "I tried to tell you today. But I thought you needed to see it with your own eyes." Rachel turned to Brianna. There was an unexpected empathy in her eyes. "You were deceived by him too. The apartment he bought for you was purchased with money stolen from the company." Understanding colored Brianna's face. Tears of anger shone in her eyes. Garrett's narrative of being a single and wealthy man collapsed, revealing the reality hidden beneath, a married man and embezzler. "What was I doing for that man?" Brianna cried, trembling with anger. She approached Garrett and pushed his chest. "You've ruined my life." "You're still young," Rachel said quietly. "You can start over." "But I gave him 15 years. Garrett's shoulders slumped, and he collapsed into a chair. All the false confidence had vanished from his face, leaving only the image of a ruined man. "You have 2 options," Rachel said calmly. She placed the divorce papers and arrest warrant on the table. "Sign and leave, or I'll call the police. Choose." The room was enveloped in silence. All eyes were on Garrett, who appeared even smaller under their weight. Every lie in his life had been exposed in this luxurious living room. Slowly, he took the pen and signed the divorce papers. His hand trembled slightly. All his strength and confidence had crumbled before the truth. "What about the company issue?" he asked the executives in a small voice. "Restitution and legal responsibility are unavoidable," one of the executives answered. "However, with full cooperation, there is a possibility of a reduced sentence." Brianna was quietly crying in Joy's arms. Her dreams and plans had collapsed along with Garrett's lies. "I'll go now." Garrett stood up and looked at Rachel with a sorrowful expression. "I'm truly sorry." "Yes," Rachel answered quietly. Her voice was infused more with a sense of liberation than anger. When Garrett headed for the door, he didn't look back. His shoulders were slumped, and his once dignified posture was gone. The sound of the door closing seemed to announce the end of 15 years of marriage. After silence filled the room, Audrey stood next to Rachel and placed her hand on her shoulder. "It's over," she said quietly. "No," Rachel smiled. A new light dwelled in her eyes. "This is the beginning." Brianna quietly approached Rachel. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but determination was also visible in them. "I was deceived just like you were by the man who deceived you. I am truly sorry." "It's not your fault," Rachel answered gently. "He betrayed both of us." Those who remained in the room gave quiet applause for Rachel's victory. It wasn't just a victory of revenge, but a victory of truth and justice, and above all, a victory of her own liberation. "The truth always comes out eventually," Rachel said quietly. She walked out onto the balcony and looked up at the twilight sky. Like the stillness after a storm, peace was beginning to return to her heart. The pain of betrayal was still there, but it would heal with time. Tonight, she had taken the first step in reclaiming her life. 6 months later, Rachel Monroe stood on the villa's spacious balcony and took a deep breath of the clear spring morning air. This luxurious villa, once the stage of sadness and anger, had now transformed into a symbol of her rebirth and creation. The harsh winter season had passed, and in the garden, new buds were breathing life and colorful flowers were beginning to bloom. Nature's regeneration harmonized beautifully with her own inner changes. Rachel looked at the extensively renovated interior of the villa. The once heavy furniture and dark tones had been removed, replaced by an open space where light and air moved freely. This place, reborn as the new showroom for her interior design company, was a space where her aesthetic sense and artistic vision had come to fruition. Natural light poured down from the high ceilings, and carefully selected materials and colors seemed to speak to the sensibilities of visitors. "It's more wonderful than I thought." Turning toward the voice, she saw her best friend Audrey looking around the living room with an expression of admiration. The white stripe in her black hair shimmered in the morning light. Truly a new beginning, Audrey approached and gently put her arm around Rachel's shoulder. The two stood quietly, gazing at the view visible through the window. "Is Garrett's trial over?" Rachel asked. She did not avoid saying her ex-husband's name consciously. It was proof that she had faced her past and overcome it. "Yes," Audrey nodded. "A 5-year prison sentence." Surprisingly, Brianna took the witness stand and exposed all his lies. "She was a victim too," Rachel said quietly. Over the past few months, the anger in her heart had gradually changed to understanding and acceptance. "How is she doing?" "She returned to Chicago where her family is. She seems to be continuing her work at the art gallery. According to Joy, she's also receiving psychological counseling," Audrey said. "She's regenerating in her own way too," Rachel smiled. She had moved from her initial anger to understanding that Brianna was also a deceived victim. The two women were walking different paths, but both were learning from past pain and moving forward. "So, what time is your new client coming today?" Audrey asked, changing the subject. There was a knowing gleam in her eyes. 11 o'clock, Rachel checked her wristwatch. "A representative from Hudson Architecture. They've been getting attention lately for their environmentally conscious designs." "That sounds interesting," a small smile appeared at Audrey's lips. "I've heard their work is excellent." At 11 a.m., Rachel welcomed her client in the showroom. She wore a light blue suit that was professional yet warm, standing with a posture full of confidence. The door opened, and architect Dominic Hudson, who appeared to be around her age, entered. His dark brown hair with a natural texture and warm brown eyes, combined with his casual yet sophisticated appearance, gave an impression of sincerity and intelligence. "Ms. Monroe," he smiled while extending his hand. It's an honor to meet you. I've respected your work for many years. Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Rachel returned the handshake. She felt her heartbeat quicken for a moment at the warmth and strength of his hand. I'm likewise impressed by your environmentally conscious design approach. Please call me Dominic, he said in a friendly manner. As they toured the showroom, they exchanged conversation about sustainable design and contributions to the local community. Dominic's sincere passion and deep knowledge resonated with Rachel's heart. She felt he was a person with genuine values and principles, not just appearances or superficial success. Your renovation project is wonderful, Dominic praised the villa's transformation. It goes beyond mere aesthetic improvements to reconsider the essential function of space and its relationship with people. Thank you, Rachel said with heartfelt gratitude. This villa has a special meaning to me. It's a legacy inherited from my father, and also a symbol of personal change. Dominic nodded in understanding. Sometimes, we come closer to our true selves after going through difficult periods in life. Their conversation gradually shifted from work topics to more personal subjects. Dominic revealed that he had gotten divorced 5 years ago and shared joint custody of his teenage son, spending weekends with him. He too was someone who had overcome life's trials and found a new path. I just recently divorced too, Rachel quietly acknowledged. She no longer felt the need to hide that fact. It wasn't easy, but now I feel like a new chapter has begun. That takes courage, Dominic said sincerely. To learn from the past while not being imprisoned by it and moving forward. As the afternoon light dyed the room golden, their conversation continued naturally. They exchanged opinions on various topics from design philosophy to environmental issues, and even art and music. In that conversation, Rachel felt intellectual stimulation and empathy for the first time in a long while. Actually, I have a proposal, Dominic said finally while closing his portfolio. Expectation and a little tension appeared in his eyes. Our company is about to start a new community center project, and we'd like to collaborate with an interior designer who has your sensibility and vision. That's an interesting project, Rachel answered while seriously considering. Would you like to discuss it more over dinner tomorrow? Dominic's invitation seemed to include something more than just business. We can talk about the project details and, if you'd like, other things too. Rachel hesitated for a moment. Was she ready to step into a new relationship? But her heart already knew the answer. I'd love to, she answered with a genuine smile for the first time in a long while. After Dominic left, Rachel returned to the villa's balcony. The soft light of dusk enveloped the garden, and shadows stretched long. She headed to her study and opened a drawer she hadn't opened for a long time. There was a jewelry box containing her wedding ring. Rachel placed the ring on her palm and gazed at it for a moment. This gold band, once a symbol of love and promise, was now merely a memento of a past chapter. She put it back in the box and placed it in a different drawer. Not throwing it away, but keeping it safe, that was her choice. Not denying the past, but accepting it, learning from it, and moving forward. Returning to the balcony again, Rachel took a deep breath while gazing at the setting sun. An ending is a new beginning, she whispered quietly.